Did you see Hubbard?
No, I didn't.
Beyond the Scoreboard, your Lawrence County SportsNet podcast, your weekly show here each week live. You're watching on YouTube or Facebook Live. Each week, Beyond the Scoreboard delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water. Give Penn Ohio Bottled Water a call for delivery of your 3 or 5 gallon water cooler systems. Let Penn Ohio Bottled Water do the heavy lifting and bring refreshing water straight to your home or work. Glad we can be joining you. Whether you're at home or work, hopefully you're at home, unless you're working the night shift. If so, we won't tell your boss that you're listening to us while you're getting stuff done, but why not? Take a look, take a listen. I'm James Dotson with Eric Thomas and Tim Continenza back for the action again as we recap Week 1, Game 2 for most, and get ready for the third week of the WPIL and District 10 season. And Eric, I'll start with you just with... Hey, quick thought as we go back to last week's set of games. We got another pair of dandy games on our resume.
Yeah, really do. Some teams starting to try to figure things out. I think Mohawk, the thing I came away with from our game last week, I think Mohawk's going to be okay offensively. Just have a little concern about shoring up their defense right now. And why can't Laurel run the football? That's one of the things I've been trying to figure out for these 2 weeks here. Lucas Santini was ridiculous last Friday. And they gave him all the time that he needed to throw the football, career high passing over 300 yards. But they have not been able to sustain any kind of run blocking up front, and they can't move the ball on the ground at all right now. Yeah,
we'll recap all 4 of the games. Let's start right with that one, the 32-27 victory for Mohawk over Laurel, putting Mohawk at 1-1. Laurel, 2 close losses, 2 one-possession losses. Tim, that's got to be aching at the heartstrings, but you've also played 2 pretty darn good 2A teams if you're the Spartans.
They definitely start the season with a couple of challenges in front of them, but I think Eric hit the main problem they had is just not being able to rush the ball consistently at a pace that we've seen them do in the past. Now, they have a passing game at a higher level than we've seen in the past. So maybe it's just using the talent that's available to them. I haven't seen them play yet. Obviously, it's early in the season. I think it's an opportunity. I'm just trying to, kind of jab and weave their way through this the first 2 weeks and try to figure out who they are and what they need to do. And I think the coaching staff has that now in front of them and have the opportunity to now concentrate on some of the things to make a more complete football play.
Yeah, I don't think many people would have thought Lucas Santini to Colton Carlson would be the top passing threat right now, but I mean, they combined for 2 more touchdowns, 337 passing yards. Eric Santini, what was it that was working so well for him?
Just everything. His timing was good. His arm looked very live. I mean, he was throwing fastballs, to steal the baseball analogy, all night long, and he was able to pick and choose his spots. They have a good complement of weapons. I mean, they can really spread the ball around if they want to. It's just, and listen, if he's going to throw the football like he did on Friday night, they don't need to run for 300 yards. They need to run for about 80 to about 120, 130, just something like we saw Mohawk do last year, where they do it enough from a play standpoint to balance it out, keep a defense honest, take a little pressure off your quarterback here and there, and then let him go out there and sling it. I mean, it was very reminiscent of a Jay Rona type performance last week where he just kind of took over and said, I'm the number one threat. They have the ability to spread that ball around, but they've got to find something up front in that running game. That's their bread and butter. They want to be more physical. They haven't done it so far in the running game.
Speaking of Jay Rona, gentlemen, how many times did you accidentally say Jay Rona instead of Bobby Fadden wearing number 4?
I will admit that. None.
No, I didn't either.
I love it, though.
He was brought up, but we definitely didn't say it.
Oh, yeah, he was definitely talked about. I mean, how can you not talk about what he achieved during his career at Mohawk? However, I think Bobby Fadden has just slipped right into that offense and has really been a leader that they're looking for.
Yeah, 3 total touchdowns, just shy of 300 total yards last week for Bobby Fadden. And Blake Logan is a guy I want to mention here real quick before we let it go, because he was really the 3rd, sometimes the 4th receiving option last year for Mohawk. Now one of the senior leaders, and Could he be the next coming of Josh Wilkins? He's got 3 field goals in the first 2 games as well. Very, very impressive stuff, especially catching the ball from Logan last week and an interception, if I correct.
Yeah, he was very good last week. I would like to see them get Nail involved a little bit more in the passing game, just to sort of take some pressure off Logan, because teams will start keying on him. They get into the meat of their schedule. I know they played Neshannock already, but they get into the meat of their schedule. They're going to need a compliment for him, and they're starting to work those guys in. I mean, Jackson Chapman's become more effective in the offense. They're running the ball very well right now. I mean, they ran the ball for over 200 yards last week, 180-some the first week. So offensive line, the mix of Stratton and Sam List is really good. There's a little bit, and this isn't an indictment of Fadden by any stretch. He's got 5 picks and 3 touchdowns. There's a little bit more of a gunslinger mentality with him and sort of how he throws the ball. He sidearms it a little bit sometimes. He's really trying to fit things into tight spots. It's not a refined passer like Jay was for that, and that's going to happen. I mean, he's brand new to the position.
Right.
Give him a couple more weeks, give him a couple more games. He's going to start kind of easing up on those things, and you can just sort of tell that they want him to cut down on the interceptions and things early in the season. But I mean, their offense has not missed a beat. It is. It may not be as polished as it's been in the past, but it is humming as it's ever. Scoring
more points per game than they did last year at this point as well. Mentioned with Blake Logan, he had the interception. That was our play of the game for that first game. Let's take a look at the play of the game, the momentum-changing interception there for Blake Logan and Mohawk.
Laurel also does the boards for the play over there, and they have one, Maya Jarrett, holding it right now with Barney on it.
I just saw that.
Santini going to rear back and air it out, looking down the field, and it's intercepted at midfield by Blake Logan, coming back across the 50, the 45, the 30, and he's tackled right near the 30-yard line inside the 30-yard line by Fuchs. Blake Logan.
And
so that interception, Eric, just the momentum. Most of the game before that and really after that, they were throwing it pretty well, but getting the turnover rather than coughing it up had to be huge and led to them taking the lead.
And there were 2 things in that game that really worked against Laurel, that it didn't look like it early on, but then longer term as the game went on, it did. But right after they score a touchdown, and then Fadden comes back and rips off a 77-yard touchdown run, or 78-yard touchdown run it was, and that stole some momentum back from him. That turnover stole some momentum back from him. So they didn't have to play from behind the whole game. I mean, Laurel made the biggest jump, I think, from week 0 to week 1. There is no question in my mind that they showed the most improvement in at least one area. Their defense still played tough, but they have to be able to overcome those turnovers and those big moments where the momentum kind of swings back the other way. And I think one of the things that they're going to be able to do when they start running the football is just that. They can go out there, they can reestablish their offensive line, they can get their offense in a flow, they can take pressure off their quarterback, doesn't all have to be on his right arm. Once they get that running game going, that's going to be key for how far and how deep they can maybe make this run this year.
Turnovers, always the name of the game. Mohawk winning that one 32-27. Turnovers played a big part down the stretch of the Neshannock Union game. Neshannock winning 48-20. A game, Tim, you and I had that one. It was a much closer game than that. It was a 1-point game at halftime, a 1-possession game at the end of the third quarter. But the difference from Neshannock a week ago to the Neshannock you saw out at Sox Russo's, they didn't cough it up, and they actually got 3 Union turnovers in that game that led to the 4-score victory.
Yeah, I thought what we've seen is a improving week-to-week scenario with Neshannock, and they had their opportunities offensively, and they were able to cash in when they had them. They were able to match Union, blow for the first 3 quarters, and then Union made a strategic decision to pull their starters after 3 quarters, and it led to, the score getting out of hand in a sense is not necessarily indictment for what we've seen in the game. But you look at that huge 4th down play that Neshannock had, when Union was at the 5-yard line and trying to go in for the tying score, and they were able to force that pass just a little too soon, and it was a little too high, a little too long. And in the process, they turned over the ball, and then they went on that huge drive, a 9-play drive that ended up with the touchdown to get the 14-point lead or 13-point lead at the time. And that was really the change of the game. That was the most defining moment of the game for both teams.
Gino Mazzocco absolutely went off. Both the quarterbacks in our games, dual threat magicians. Gino Mazzocco, 123 passing yards with a touchdown, another $150 on the ground with 4 touchdowns. We talked to Coach Bonjavingo last week, Eric. Talked about being a student of the game. His zone read capability right now is incredible. He's making the right decisions every time and getting big gains. I mean, he's averaging 10 yards a carry, over 10 yards a carry last week.
Big jump from sophomore to junior year for him without question. You know what stands out to me though the most about this Neshannock team is the big plays. I mean, it's every time you turn around, 71 yards, 30 yards, 50 yards, whatever the case is, they are just getting the chunk play. It's almost like whenever they want to. Whereas last year they maybe dialed it up and tried to get something out of it. Now it just sort of happens. I mean, their offense is in such a good flow right now that wherever they are on the field, they seem like they can just jump right on somebody if they want to. And we can get it in the rankings a little bit later. I still don't know what you're going to do in 1A. I mean, as far as throw a dart, but I mean, right now Mazzocco directing traffic. They don't have anybody. I mean, Cubelis has the most receptions on that team, but they don't really have anybody who wows you because it's spread the ball out. But whatever they want to do, they just go and do right now, and that's all because of the guy that's behind center.
Yeah, and who's running it so well himself. They had to start keying on him. You get the play action that went for the touchdown, our play of the game, the Braden Montgomery wide open acrobatic catch for a 20-yard score. Let's take a look. Throughout the course of this one, 2 tight ends set to the left on 1st and 15. Play action throw over the middle. Wide open is Braden Montgomery up the seam into the end zone. 20-yard touchdown. Braden Montgomery from Gino Mazzocco. Neshannock takes the lead for the first time tonight.
Yeah, beautiful pass. Once he cut over to the middle, there was nobody home. It was just about delivering the ball to Montgomery, and he did the best he could to keep his feet going and get into the end zone for that 20-yard touchdown pass.
And that was a lead that they would not relinquish at that point, Tim. But we kind of talked about it on the air. The tight end position being, over the last 10, 12 years at Neshannock, so crucial and sometimes underutilized. Montgomery had a bigger catch even than that on that 95-yard scoring drive immediately after the turnover. He played insanely well, as did the other tight end, Ashton Allison.
Yeah, and I think that's really going to be interesting how they implement those two throughout the season, because they're going to have – someone you could put it into a slot or to a wing side, and who can play the traditional tight end and block and help with the run game. It's an interesting weapon that not many teams have the physical player to play that position anymore. You have more the spread offense where you have the slot receivers and they're decent blockers, but when you can get a physical tight end with some size like Montgomery has and Ashton has, it changes the entire, physicality of a football team.
Real quick, let's talk about Union. Again, 48-20 was the final score. It was 27-20 at the end of the third quarter. Tim, just seeing them in person, to me, they passed the eye test. Maddox Thompson leading the way, 3 rushing touchdowns, total just shy of 200 total yards rushing and receiving. Oh, he also threw a ball for 18 yards. But, he and Lucas Stanley kind of sharing that quarterback role. Yeah, it was interesting to watch.
It was. I didn't know what to expect coming into there from Union, because obviously I didn't get to see them play any of the scrimmages, and this is their first game of the year. And Maddox was just phenomenal. What he was able to bring, that change-up type atmosphere. I mean, you knew when he was in the backfield, he was running the ball, but they also loaded the side, to the left side, and they just kind of hammered that way. And then a few times when they used Lucas, who was at quarterback running the ball, they went to the left side. He's a left-handed quarterback. Made a lot of sense. And then all of a sudden you would see something go the opposite way. And it worked really well. And the game planning, I thought, was really special for that game, and how they did it. They controlled the game, in a sense, in possession for most of the game. And they were able to achieve a lot of good quality plays every time they were behind center.
Yeah, the total yards was like 360 to 340, so it was basically even by the time that game came to an end. And also interesting, I never thought I would say Union would be putting in a sixth lineman ever, but they did, and they did for a majority of the game, and it worked insanely well. So it'll be fun to watch what they do because they're going to take on another big team in Washington. We'll preview that one coming up later on in the show. So Mohawk 32-27 over Laurel, Neshannock over Union 48-20. The other games that were on Friday night, Shenango and Elwood was postponed, canceled, I should say. A lot of games down in Beaver County ended up getting canceled due to weather. Some of them that were continued later in the night or the following day. A couple that just were no contest from the get-go. The Wilmington game out in Hubbard, Ohio, actually also was altered by the weather. Didn't start for almost an hour late in Hubbard. Well, they were like lightning striking early and often. 39-7 was the final in that one. One thing I will say about Wilmington, though, they only allowed 38 rushing yards to Hubbard. It was the air game, though, that caused trouble. Over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns through the air. Jamie Miller getting the late touchdown run. The Wilmington Achilles heel is going to be the passing game. Negative yards, Tim. I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is, but
that's their offense.
That is the style who they play. That's what they play. And they are a run offense. And, you know, you're going to in that wing and you're going to do your thing. And 99% of the time for them, traditionally, it works well. This past week, it just, you know, it was a bad matchup. But doesn't mean that you abandon what you do. You get back to it. You had a whole week now to prepare for this week. We'll see what transpires and how they improve on it. They're a young team.
Yeah.
They only have 2 seniors, if I remember correctly, and one didn't even play last year. So I think it's just a team we're gonna have to evaluate week to week, and then, you know, come week 6, 7, we're gonna see really the level of play that they can possibly be.
Yeah, from out of district or out of state now to an out of district team. They'll play District 5 Northern Bedford coming up on Friday this week. Talk about lightning striking, though. How about Newcastle? A 42-19 victory over Hopewell. Amir Akins, his first touch of the year, the first play of the year, takes it for a 55-yard touchdown. That was impressive. And Tyrell Harris, impressive again. 200 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. Nate McKnight, nearly 200 receiving yards, Eric, and a pair of scores. Last week it was Chase Lemon who was the big recipient. This week it's Nate McKnight. They're showing off the multitude of weapons they have.
Yeah, 22 catches between those two guys. McKnight, you said 6 catches for $182. I think the most important thing that they got out of this week, though, is they cut down on the points allowed. They didn't get into another shootout. They really controlled the outcome of that game from start till the very end, and never really seemed like they were in any doubt that they were going to go to 2-0. And how about them? I mean, 2-0. I think our 5-0 thing is in play. I really do think that's in play when they get to Aliquippa, and then who knows, 5-0. I mean, that might be good enough to start thinking about them locking up a spot in the postseason. But what an offense! I mean, they're just I don't know how you slow these guys down. You need athletes to slow them down. They're going to run into a team that has that later in the year, but if these guys can keep building some momentum and keep putting out performances like they've been, that's going to be trouble for a lot of teams they face.
How about this? These are the top offenses by points per game right now in the WPIL. Monessen, a couple of blowout wins, 60.5 points per game for them. Bethel Park at 49.5, Southmoreland at 47. That's your top 3. Newcastle is next at 45.5. Franklin Regional also tied with them, 45.5. And then Neshannock comes in tied at 6 with TJ. So you have 2 of the top 6 scoring offenses in the WPIL are out of Lawrence County. And Mohawk doesn't have a bad start either. 35 points a game for the Warriors. You're going to see a lot of points on the board is the way it's looking like this year. You hope, for everybody's sake, the defense catches up? Or you hope that our announcer voices hang on at this point, Tim?
Yeah, well, you know, whatever may transpire will be fun. But there's a lot of good athletes on the offensive side of the ball, period. In all our schools, when you look at it. I mean, you're talking about, you know, Santisi and what he's able to do. You're talking about, you know, what Harris with Newcastle. We're talking about Mozako in Neshannock. You know, we're talking about Lucas Stanley, who just got started with Union. So we got a lot of quality young kids that are quarterbacks, that are great athletes who can make plays. And if you design an offense around their ability, you should be able to score points. And right now, I think we're seeing really some of the top-notch coaching that we have in this county come to fruition and showing what they can do year in, year out with different talent and different opportunities.
42-19 Newcastle over Hopewell. Hubbard defeating Wilmington 39-7. Mohawk 32-27 over Laurel. And Neshannock 48-20 over Union. Those are your Week 1, Game 2 scoring recap. What we're going to do is we're going to step aside for a moment. We have a special conversation. Mohawks coach Tim McCutcheon, kind enough to join us when we return here on Beyond the Scoreboard, Lawrence County SportsNet podcast. It's delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water.
Don't get left out to dry. Call the Penn Ohio Bottled Water Company for the fastest and most efficient bottled water delivery service in the area. Penn Ohio offers bottled water ranging from 16.9-ounce bottles to 5-gallon jugs, perfect for your next event or office water cooler system. Also, don't forget to ask about their custom labeling options. Visit PennOhioBottledWater.com for more information and to get a quote on their delivery services. Whether it's at home, in the office, or on the sidelines, Penn Ohio has you covered.
Thank you for calling Axe. Where can we take you today?
To work, to the store, to Grandma's house. Axe can get you there, but it's much more than a ride. It's a joyride.
I'm helping people. I'm getting them out of their house. I'm taking them to their doctors, to the grocery store.
They say I'm entertaining. Okay, we laugh, we joke, we sing, we tell stories.
They're like family to us.
Even if it's the same day, to schedule your joyride, call Axe today.
We certainly weren't expecting that. However, we did know that we did bring back some explosive football players, and we felt like we adapted our system enough to put them in position to put some points up. But we certainly thought that we were going to have to rely heavily on our defense to keep us in games early. But yep, we've had guys step up, and overall, we're happy with it.
Yeah, obviously the big change beginning at the quarterback position, but I mean, from afar, it doesn't even look like a change. It's a new number 4 out there with Bobby Fadden taking over cousin Jay's number. Is that taking a little getting used to? You haven't called him Jay by accident now, have you?
I haven't. They're both uniquely talented athletes. I thought it was great for Bobby to honor his cousin, switching to his number. They're just both great kids and great athletes, and they're both bring a little different approach to the quarterback position, but at the same time, Bobby's quietly been our backup quarterback for a couple of years. So we had a good idea of what he brought to the table if we needed to transition him into that position.
The transition offensively has gone strong for the most part. I know he and you are probably, and the whole coaching staff will also be critical maybe of turnovers, but as your first games at quarterback, that's just the learning experience, right, of getting into full playing time, and I'm sure things that you've already seen improvement on from week 0 to week 1 and from one day to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to cut the turnovers down. Fortunately, we were able to get a lot in that first game. It didn't end up paying off for us, but we ended up winning the turnover battle. But yeah, we wanted to cut the turnovers. We want him to go out and be an athlete. But even though he's an athlete that's been under the bright lights in every sport at this point, he's been in huge games in multiple sports. So the lights aren't too bright for him, that's for sure. But the quarterback position's a different animal. So when you're talking there, you're talking not just being a fluid athlete. He has to make some reads, and he's a gutsy quarterback that's not going to be afraid to make big throws, and we don't want him to be afraid. We give him the keys to the ride and let him go. And sometimes when you do that, the other team's going to make a play, and then we have to play defense.
You give him the keys to the ride, but it starts with having a good ride to begin with. And that was one of the questions you kind of alluded to it, of being physical at the get-go, a lot of new bodies on that offensive line. Talk about their progression. Talk about some of the big guys there in the trenches getting the job done here early.
Yeah, that's been huge for us. Everyone knows that's where it starts, is up front. And like you said, we lost 4 really good linemen up front. We brought back a senior in Dylan Sumi, who was recognized this week. He was our player of the game and was recognized by the local paper. And and then Danny Monaco, returning junior. So those were our focal points of guys with experience that we were hoping could lead the way. After that, we were hoping that a couple sophomores could step up, and they have. And then we have a senior who has no Friday night experience, and another junior that are all still repping in. We're still trying to find our best combination at this point. That's what's nice about the three non-conference games before you get into the conference. So we actually still have some positional battles going on, but overall we've been pretty pleased with all of them up front. So that's a good problem that we didn't think we would have.
Talking with Coach McCutcheon here on Beyond the Scoreboard with the Lawrence County SportsNet. You mentioned with those non-conference games, getting a chance to to learn a little bit more, and that you still have these ongoing battles. Talk about the battles though on the field with the opponents, being these Lawrence County foes, and some extra games you can play against these local rivals.
Yeah, it's great. When you start your season going on the road, week 0 to Neshannock, and then follow up with Laurel. For a spectator's standpoint, what more could you ask, right? For us developmentally, it's great, but it's been a tough 2 games on the coaching staff and kids. Both games went down to the wire. So, what to say? It's good to see the kids get to play against their local rival kids that they grow up playing peewees against. And, even though Laurel and Neshannock, they're in and out of 2A and 1A, we're able to keep those little rivalries going, and they're able to get them in our schedule. So it's a tough start to a season. Both teams are perennial powers in football. So we certainly wanted the opportunity to play them, and it's been worth the price of admission, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. We've been glad to be there for these tight games. And we kind of talked about it last year, Coach, having a couple of those close games early in the year. Kind of a similar scenario. You lose a close one early, you win a close one early last year. Same sort of scenario this year. How big are those come week 7, 8, 9, and then potentially into the playoffs, to have these tight contests that your kids as a team have been prepared for it and seen it up close and personal?
Yeah, they're huge. It was kind of odd. What are the chances of first week 0 back-to-back years we score 37 points and lose in the end? And that's how it went the last 2 years. Last year we were real confident on how we would bounce back as a team, and this year we weren't quite sure. We were happy with their performance at Nesh, but then we had to see. Okay, well, we just didn't know how they would respond. At the end of the day, losing a close game, we took a lot of good out of it, but nonetheless, it's devastating, and you're never sure how a younger team's going to handle it. So, we knew we needed to bounce back strong to have a shot at Laurel, and we were pleasantly surprised they responded well. And those are the little character things you need to see in your team to make you feel confident, like you said, later in the season when you need big wins on the road, or if you're coming off a loss. That kind of character goes a long way. So very pleased with their response.
Jackson Chapman's been a big stalwart for you guys defensively, but getting a little bit more of an offensive role as well. Talk about his development and what we can still expect to see even more growth from him on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. He's just a ball player. Last year, he had an all-conference season, but everyone can't make all-conference. We had a season where we went to the semifinals, so we had a lot of players go, and truly, we had a couple others that had all-conference seasons but didn't make it, and that's part of the deal. But he was one of them. He was a game wrecker for us on defense, and I think as the season got later and the games got bigger, he stood out more. He's just he is a game-changing athlete, and so we're expecting more of the same of him defensively, and then offensively. From the tight end position, he can contribute a lot. He's a big, strong athlete that loves the game, and I think you're going to see a lot more of him moving forward offensively.
Another one of those guys who kind of flew under the radar for you last year, but he's making his name in a big way so far this year is Blake Logan, including, he's on pace to absolutely shatter the field goals kicking record that Josh Wilkins has put up there at Mohawk. But he's been a nice surprise, not a surprise for you guys, but just a nice name to see, really succeeding early on in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a strong receiving core last year, and like you said, he was the younger of the crew. Well, I guess not Bobby also, but we had in Dante and Bobby, and then him at the receiver position. So 3 good receivers, and we knew Blake. We knew he was going to be big for us, receiver, and then he's been starting for us for the last couple of years as a defensive back. Kicking wise, we knew, he's just a unique talent that could pick up a ball and he can punt it, he can kick it, whatever you need him to do. We knew how well he could kick the ball. Just when you have Josh Wilkins in front of you, we let Josh go handle that. Blake usually needed to break anyway, but Blake actually, he enjoys kicking. And he's good at it. So like you said, we've had to shy off with him a little bit on kickoffs because he had hurt his ankle. So we've been kind of managing that a little bit and picking our spots when we kick them. But when we need the extra point or the field goal, he's been the guy for us, and he's been reliable.
Coach McCutcheon's been reliable for us. I love talking to you, Coach. Let me ask one final question. Your one final tune-up in non-conference play before everything big time starts in the MAC here next Friday. But talk about this Friday. Talk about Shenango. Obviously, it's a very unique circumstance in terms of preparation when they didn't play last week. Just what more from your team's perspective, what you want to see from your Warriors heading out there to Pop Johnson Stadium?
Yeah, well, that's it. We go there with a heavy heart. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Graham family and the whole community. We go there with a heavy heart, but it's my responsibility to get us ready for the next game. We know that we're going to be playing an emotional football team who's put up some good tape. Now, like you said, they didn't play understandably last week. So, we're limited on what we have on tape so far, but, really, like I told our guys, it has to be about us. We have to be a week better this week. You can't have them looking forward to the conference games ahead and overlooking this one, that's for sure. That Jimmy always has his guys ready. They're very physical. They're very aggressive. And they're going to be very emotional. So for us, we have to go there ready to play football and match their intensity early. And we're hoping that eventually we're able to wear them down. We'll see what happens.
Well, Coach, I appreciate it very much. Go have a great practice tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing your crew out there on Friday.
Okay. Hey, thanks for having me on, James. I appreciate it. Take care. We'll see you Friday.
We'll see you Friday. Thanks so much. Thanks again to Coach Tim McCutcheon. That was recorded earlier today as Mohawk does their later practice here on Wednesdays. And I respect Coach McCutcheon that, he said, hey, we get into a routine, we want to stick with it. So I also appreciate him taking time out of that routine to chat earlier with us here today. But Tim, it's always fun hearing from Coach McCutcheon what he is thinking. And 37 points in week 0 for back-to-back years. I hadn't realized that.
Yeah,
and lost
and
in
to
both
lose
of them.
them both, it's just shocking, really. I mean, obviously you're doing something right. And
yeah,
it's just unfortunate that they didn't turn into to the W's. But when you look at what Mohawk as a team has done and how they achieve, and a lot of it is Coach McCutcheon's personality. Mm-hmm. It is straightforward. It's about coming and doing your thing and doing it right and knowing what to do each and every day. What we do to be prepared for Friday night. And as we've seen in the previous years, as we see, obviously, the first 2 weeks of this season, they're prepared. Mm-hmm. Final scores are final scores. You'll deal with those, and you'll make adjustments. And in week 0, they had opportunity to win that game. They couldn't quite close it out. And Nishanik was able to win it. Then you look at week 2, they were able to climb that mountain and get the W. And I think it's just a matter of continue to move forward. And obviously, they know some of the leaks that they have in their team. They're going to work on it.
We said it last year in that week 0 game at Union, Eric, that, they may have lost, but this is, confidence, like, look, we can play in these sort of games down the stretch. It didn't go our way this time. And then we saw them win how many close games? The Beaver Falls game they come from behind late is the one that really sticks out in my mind. The Imani Christian game in the playoffs that they come back and get the win late. He knows what he's doing. He's playing in these tight games, not intentionally, but he knows that this is going to only help them down the stretch. And even from week 0 to week 1, you've seen improvements. Even
if they have something that doesn't go their way early in a game, they will. You can push them up against the ropes. They're going to keep swinging. I mean, they play with so much confidence because of their head coach. And a lot of that, of course, in the last couple of years is because they had a kid who could go out there and just throw the ball 50 times and basically will them to a win, big play after big play if they wanted it. But I noticed that last week. They just sort of, they're 0-1, Fadden's crazy and throwing the ball all around there and things like that. They just sort of play with a confidence that a lot of teams don't necessarily have week to week. I mean, we can talk about some of the matchups we got coming up this week. I mean, there's a team in particular I want to see that plays with a little bit more confidence, and that's going to be Elwood City. But Mohawk it doesn't matter who's behind center. It doesn't matter who's on the offensive line. Yeah. I didn't think their offensive line was going to be as good as it's been the first 2 weeks. I thought that was going to be a serious question mark. That might actually be their strongest point. Yeah, it sure has looked like it for sure. And if they do cut down on some of those turnovers like you would expect over the course of a year, watch out. This team is going to get extremely dangerous. But thanks again, Coach Tim McCutcheon, again, for joining us, coming off the bench to chat with us here on the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. Before we take another quick break, and then we will look at the week 2, game 3 slate of games across Lawrence County. But before we do, it's time to go across the county. We got a couple of submissions, and we have much more coming in already in the works for next week's show. But a couple of different schools. Reminder that we're just asking students from across the county to basically submit through their journalism, their tech teams, whatever, little recaps of some of the things going on beyond the football world, specifically trying to get some recaps of the volleyball, the soccer, the golf action, cross country, whatever it may be. And we're going to start. We have a submission from Laurel. This is part of their morning announcements that they had going on. A couple of the athletes, student athletes, giving a little recap of what's going on here at Laurel. So let's give a little shout out to the Laurel Spartans.
I'm Ashton Main.
And I'm Jackson Sodders, and we're your Laurel WLTV news team.
Today, they will take on Riverside this Friday at home at 7 o'clock.
The varsity volleyball team lost to Butler last Thursday in 3 games. Tegan Fortuna had 7 spikes during the match. Tuesday, Laurel beat Neshannock 3-1.
The varsity golf team was able to secure a section win last Friday against Shenango, 218 to 221. Eli Bentram led the team by shooting a 36. Seth Gilmore with a score of 43. Nolan Dugan was able to get a 44. Dylan Dugan builded on that, getting a 47. And Talon Bailey tallied up a score of 48. They will host Mohawk on Wednesday at 3:30.
The cross-country team competed on Saturday in the Hickory Hornet Harrier Invitational. Laurel placed 9th with a total of 275 points. Aiden Mack placed 4th with a time of 17:25, and Valerie Hauser placed 12th with a time of 22:21.
Good job, Laurel.
Thank you again to Ashton and Jackson. We also have a quick recap here from Union High School. Let's give a shout out to the Union crew. And here's Ellie Smith for Union.
Union volleyball fought hard against Blackhawk last night with JV losing in 2 sets. Varsity had a hard run but lost in 5 sets. Leading in kills was Olivia Benedict with 12. Maggie Joseph also added 25 assists. They play in a non-section match against Shenango tomorrow night and start section play on September 10th against Cornell. Last Thursday, the Union golf team took on Elwood and lost. Leading in scores was Landon Eckert, who shot a 36. Union kicked off the football season last Friday, honoring seniors Jamel Mitchell, Rogan Hupp, Daniel Maccabia, Maddox Thompson, Lucas Stanley, and Andrew Thompson. That's a wrap for the Scotties this week. This is Ellie Smith reporting for LC SportsNet.
Thanks again to the Union and Laurel crews, and I know we have a bunch already in the works for next week, so big shout out to all those tech teachers and producers and principals and everybody helping us to get those recaps. We'll hope and have a full slate of 8 coming up for next week's show, Tim. That's the goal, at least.
You know, it's awesome to hear the students get involved and give the recaps and shout outs to the different teams that are involved, obviously the golf team, the volleyball team, and others. And it'll be a wonderful addition to the podcast here.
And not to mention getting to hear the voices of some of the guys that we hear on Friday nights or on Tuesday, Thursdays for volleyball or whatnot as well. By the way, we will be having we plan to at least the golf championships or the MAC championships again, and we'll have to find out for sure on the cross country on that Saturday. But I know our producer Matt Flannery, he can go and take care of all that. We can stay away and let him wake up at 7 a.m. on the Saturday morning. Sound good, Matt?
Oh yeah.
He didn't say no, so not that you would hear him anyway. He refuses.
I didn't hear a no either.
No, I didn't. So.
Yeah.
Well, you should have done it. Just turn on that mic. He would never know.
Oh, absolutely. I could right there. Boom. We thank him. We thank everybody tuning in here live on the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. We're going to step aside here again one last time. We'll come back and we will give a little preview for what we got going on for week number 2, third week of the season. It's Beyond the Scoreboard, Lawrence County SportsNet podcast, delivered by Penn Ohio Bottled Water.
I love what I do because coming in every day is different.
How can you not enjoy these kids coming up and hugging you and giving you these great smiles all throughout the day?
Seeing the progress that our kids make every single day is one of the reasons I love coming to school.
What should we do? We have fun.
LCAP Early Learning Centers is hiring. Help empower young minds in Lawrence County and become a superhero today. Apply at lcap.org.
Don't get left out to dry. Call the Penn Ohio Bottled Water Company for the fastest and most efficient bottled water delivery service in the area. Penn Ohio offers bottled water ranging from 16.9-ounce bottles to 5-gallon jugs, perfect for your next event or office water cooler system. Also, don't forget to ask about their custom labeling options. Visit PennOhioBottledWater.com for more information and to get a quote on their delivery services. Whether it's at home, in the office, or on the sidelines, Penn Ohio has you covered.
All right, back at it. Make sure you stay refreshed by enjoying hot or cold water at the click of a button. Or you can enjoy a cup of coffee with the Penn Ohio Bottled Water bottom-loading water cooler option. James Dotson, Tim Continenza, Eric Thomas, the crew here again, ready to rock and roll. Going to get ready to talk about this Friday's slate of games, 6 games in the conference. But first, I'm going to throw a little curveball. We just had week 1 of the college football season. I want it from each one of you, I don't know, something surprising, something that caught your eye about any one of the games. And no, Eric, you're not allowed to make fun of former Notre Dame coaches.
I won't make fun of Notre Dame coaches, period. Surprise of the week. Oh boy, Clemson would be easy to pick on, but I think everybody's known that that's going to be a storyline with Dabo not going after the transfers. I really thought Florida State was going to bounce back. However, anytime you're going to put a team in front of Bill O'Brien like that, I'm going to pick Bill O'Brien 9 times out of 10. The man coached Tom Brady. He's got Super Bowl rings. He coached at Penn State and brought that team back from the brink. So I guess Florida State wouldn't be the surprise. Maybe the surprise, honestly, I thought West Virginia was going to put up more of a fight against Penn State. They got demolished. I mean, Penn State just did whatever they wanted to in that game. Drew Aller looked the best that he's maybe looked ever as a starter in a season, in a game. And I know maybe they didn't put up the gaudy rushing numbers that they wanted to, but man, that drive right before the half where he hit Wallace for the touchdown, that was game over at that point. I mean, West Virginia had no shot in that game whatsoever. That was a very lackluster performance. I thought, given all the hype and a lot of the things you were seeing on social media, that was going to be a hostile place. And after a couple early, snafus and turnovers and things, Penn State just said, forget it. This thing's over.
Well, I took the week off. I really didn't watch that much
Wow.
college football.
All right.
I'll be honest, that the first week sometimes just doesn't have any real great games. I thought I caught part of the Notre Dame game. I was actually, I thought they played well. And that's about it. I mean, I didn't watch Ohio State because it was Akron. No need.
What, you don't like the
Zips? I never pay attention to Zips. I hate the Zips.
Oh, I'm thinking the Rubber Ducks. That's the
that's the baseball team.
That's the baseball team, not
I hate
the Zips.
And the only game I paid attention to a little bit was on Thursday night, where Youngstown went down to Villanova, and unfortunately Villanova, they did what I expected.
And we'll leave it at that. Yeah, speaking of a little college updates here as well, we'll throw that in just for fun. We're also going to throw in, spoiler alert, we're going to do a little power rankings across Lawrence County. Not this week. We're going to start our first ones next week, leading into the conference openers for most of the county beginning next week. But, we got a couple of undefeated teams. Newcastle at 2-0, as well as Neshannock. Elwood City at 1-0 as well. So some teams battling this week to see who could potentially end up at the top of that power rankings list at the end of this one. So let's get right into it. Let's start with those 2-0 Newcastle Red Hurricanes. The quest to get to that 5-0 going into Aliquip, I think this is the game that's going to be the biggest one on their hurdle, because they face a Highlands team. They're 1-1. They're doing something that they've never done in history. They never have had back-to-back overtime games before. They lost 38-37 in overtime in week 0. And then they defeated Elizabeth Forward 53-52 in 3 overtimes. They went for 2 in the 3rd overtime and won it. This is going to be a team, when you combine Highlands at 45 points a game and Newcastle at 45.5 points a game, defense optional here for this one. We're going to hear the fireworks going off a lot there at Taggart Stadium, Eric.
Yeah, but usually when you put those two things together, they cancel each other out, and it is defense that does something. Right. So I'm going to look for a defensive play in that game to maybe swing it. And one way or another, maybe a turnover with somebody up a possession, or a turnover that ties it or something, but leads to a tie. But listen, a couple things for Newcastle. I think first and foremost, don't read the press clippings. Yeah, there's going to be some hype about this team. I don't mean that with any disrespect to those kids, because they deserve every ounce of praise they're getting for what they've done early on. Just stay level. Yeah. Stay level and look at 1 week at a time. You're 1-0, you're not 2-0 type of thing. And keep it going. I mean, their offense right now is flying. They are explosive. They're, again, last week made a big jump in terms of points given up. I know the opponent might not have been as strong last week, but this is a Highlands team that is probably going to come in there and think that, hey, we can go point for point with this team. And, maybe the Newcastle defense shows a little teeth early in that game and says, no, you're going to have to earn this one tonight. And they get up a couple scores, keep their foot on the gas, they can maybe win that thing going away. Yeah,
the quarterback for Highlands, Menage Lucas, how about this? Exactly 370 yards, 1 fewer passing yard, but he's got 9 total touchdowns. So a dual-threat quarterback on both sides of the football. Tim, just for a little history lesson, they've played 13 times, 4 of those 13 in the playoffs, including the Newcastle's last playoff victory back in 2022. So they are kind of familiar with each other, obviously with Coach Mazzocco being the new blood, but these two teams ready to go at it yet again. No surprise.
It's interesting to hear that. And more importantly, I think, is just that. You got new blood at the head coach in Mazzocco, who's been there as, with Neshannock, and has built a program. That's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, I think Eric kind of hit it on the button there, where he said, it's going to be what defense makes a big play, or what special team makes a big play in this game that gets you a short field, that takes advantage of it, gets an opportunity to make those extra points that you don't necessarily get in a normal flow of a game. So, one thing about Coach Mo, he's going to challenge his team, and he's going to stay on them, and he's going to make sure that they don't start reading too much. That.
Oh, he's still going to have on that bulletin board the Twitter clipping saying last place, right?
Exactly.
Probably the best coaching matchup in this area, if not in the WPIL on Friday too. Matt Bonoslawski's a heck of a young coach, and played football at Connecticut. I actually did their first game last year on the season, and I thought that team was going to just fly last year. They had every conceivable piece of talent you needed to win, but he's a brilliant mind. That's going to be a really good coaching matchup between those two. And we already know that he's going to gamble if he wants to in a game too.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun one. We'll get you live updates for that one for sure over the course of the evening. Let's go from undefeated to teams looking for their first win. Laurel and Riverside both at 0-2. Laurel, obviously, we talked about the big step they took last week, hoping to see the run game kind of step up where the passing game did this past week. Riverside, they put up 25 points in each of their first two games, but they lost both of them to Hopewell and to Northgate. Robbie Janis there yet again as a big running back for sure for the Panthers. But yeah, for Laurel, I think it's pick up right where you left off and try to make some big plays, maybe the pass to open up the run, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to build on what you did successfully. I mean, they're off to a tough start, but not a start that they can't overcome. So, yeah. You got to, Santini has to throw the ball, make those decisions. We've already seen him make some good quality decisions. Obviously, running the ball, defense, making a play, getting a key turnover is going to be key here. Obviously, field position. Anytime you can change field position and make another team go a long distance, that's a good thing. And I think that's going to be a big part of trying to keep that 25-point average down and giving you, meaning Laurel, the best opportunity to achieve more than that and to come out on the victor side.
The other game going on for WPIL non-conference, Union 0-1, traveling to Washington at 1-1. Washington was the number 1 ranked team in Class 2A, Eric. They were defeated by Steel Valley. Played a close game against McGuffey in their opening game as well. So only 3 touchdowns in 2 games for this Washington team. They're going to have a big line, but again, we saw last week, Union very much outsized and was able to control the ground game for a majority of that game.
And if I heard you correctly last Friday, I went back and I watched your game last week. Maddox Thompson not eligible for the playoffs, right?
That is unfortunately for Union correct.
It's all just load him up and let him go, and they're going to get the most out of him that they can. I really like Union's personnel on the field. I thought their wide receivers were pretty good, even though they weren't asked to do a whole lot. Stanley's going to have a chance to settle in that quarterback role. They play both guys. They mix their formations up. That long drive at the start of the game where they were running the ball and running the ball and running the ball. We're not used to that from a season ago. Maybe Braylon Thomas take off and run, but not like the design run with running backs or, things like that. And I really was impressed with their offensive line in that game, even though they ended up losing it. That's Union starts to kind of show who it's going to be the rest of the year. I think we already have a pretty good idea who they're going to be. This is a huge game for them early in the season. And if they really want to prove that they've just reloaded this instead of rebuilt it, Friday night's when they're going to have to come up with a big win.
Shout out to little 5'7" Johnny Million, who looked like a 6'2" Mike Allstott fullback at times, but then slipped away. He had over 100 yards rushing there on Friday last week as well. First ever meeting, by the way, between the Scotties and the Little Prexies. And then the other game in non-conference, District 10 Wilmington taking on District 5 Northern Bedford. Northern Bedford, quick talk about them. Ben Clark, he's averaging about 115 yards a game. They got a good balanced attack. More than anything, Tim, I think for Wilmington, it's, they've shown they can stop the run. They've shown they can run the ball. They've struggled passing and stopping the pass. I think it's going to be in that phase of the game they need to do the most improvement.
Yeah, defense, starts there. If you can limit a team to be more one directional and one-sided, that can make a big difference. Obviously, if you can control the passing game and get to the quarterback, maybe not allow him to get outside or stuff like that, or run with the ball, it will make a big difference. That's where the key is, can you get your front seven to make enough pressure and make plays that puts them in third and long situations? You want to be 3rd down 7. You want to be defensively 3rd down and 8. Those are great scenarios where you can just kind of run back and go after them. And that's what they need. They need to make some plays early in the downs to prevent those 3rd and shorts type scenario. We're very makeable.
Northern Bedford, again, out of District 5. How about this? Wilmington has only played one other District 5 team. That was Chestnut Ridge. And they actually played them 3 times in a row, Eric. 2018 and 2019 in the regular season, and then in the state playoffs in 2020. Northern Bedford coming in at 2-0. It's going to be another good challenge out of district, though, for the Hounds.
I think that first of all, there's no shame in losing that Hubbard team.
Yeah.
They're Northeast 8. That's a good conference in Ohio. I know they got Girard there, so that's going to be a good conference to watch if you like Ohio football. But no shame in that whatsoever. And they've also dominated their first two opponents. I think 88-26 in their first two games. Mitchell Tree, get back on track.
Yeah.
Pound the football with him in this contest. They're going to be successful. I know that Jamie Miller had a pretty good game for them on Friday night. I don't know when those yardage came, if they were after it was already the 26-point second quarter. But Mitchell Tree, 30 carries minimum. Pound him and get out of there.
Let that fullback go to work. Get Jamie Miller and company on the sweeps from the wingback position. They're going to be balanced. That's what they're going to do as well. But I think you're right. Find the times though to be able to run the play action, get a couple of those passes working with Wesley there with Vascal, and that's going to be their key to success, to mix it in when necessary all year. All those games are Friday night, 7 o'clock starts, as are the two we'll have coverage of, the two county versus county games. Let's start with the one that Tim and Eric will be attending, the 10th matchup ever between Elwood City and Neshannock, and both are undefeated. The 1-0 Wolverines, 2-0 Neshannock Lancers. 10th matchup, but Neshannock has won 6 straight, and again, points expected on the board. They're averaging 45 a game, and they've put up 40 or more each of the last 5 times these two teams have played, Eric.
Big plays. And, we still don't really know what this Elwood City team is going to be because we didn't see them last week, and that's not their fault. But, one game in the books, and they had to go to overtime to beat Laurel and get a big play in the end zone by Luciano Gagrick to save that game. Last year, really, Neshannock's defense put the clamps on this Elwood City team. I know Elijah Palmer McCain still had 100 yards. They really got after Chris Smiley. He did not have a good game against Neshannock last year. He's going to have to come back and play better this year for them to have a shot. And remember, in that first game, he looked good, but he was a little shaky in that game. I think 8-21 is what he finished up at. So he's going to have to be a little bit better than that. He said early in the season he wants to make more plays in drives, be more involved in drives. So let's see it in this game. This, talking about power rankings, this is for 1 or 2 in my book next week, I think.
That's fair enough. I think so, Tim. You've seen Neshannock progress from the 4 turnovers week 0, none last week.
The thing is, will their defense continue to improve? I'm really interested to see how Neshannock's defense can take it to the next level and hold a team down and give their offense really a chance to get an early lead in a ball game and build on it. I think that's going to be really key. I'm really looking forward to seeing Smiley play and see how he handles the situation that he has. And then we'll see if Palmer McCain can you return to that rushing threat that he has been in the past. I think for Elwood City, it's going to be important. He's a big part of their offense. He has to be able to hit the holes and get yardage. He's a guy that you just want to keep feeding throughout the ball game. And then when you do that, that's going to make Smiley that much more effective.
We always say it's a battle of the trenches. I think this game, though, very, very evident that whoever wins the trenches is going to be the one that'll be in advantage. And keep an eye, too. You mentioned Luciano Gagrick. Him on offense, kind of a spelling EPM or being that second option, so you can't just focus on Elijah Palmer McCain. Could be key.
They really, in the first game against Laurel, we saw it. They tried a couple of times to get a few of the receivers involved, and when they weren't hanging onto the ball, it's almost like the lid went on that then, and they had to just to hope that EPM was going to break a big run, and he did. He scored the 2 touchdowns that won him the game, so he was definitely the deciding factor in that. But I want to see this Elwood team. I want to know a little bit about what they did in the off week, how much film, if they scrimmaged, if they how their practice was, just to kind of get a feel of how they were able to. Said it last week with Lee. Teams generally make their biggest improvements from week 1 to week 2. Now, obviously, here it's 0-1, but week 1 to week 2. We didn't see a week 2 for them. We only saw week 1. This is their week 2. How big of an improvement have they made from that first game until Friday night? We're going to find out real quick, because if they're not careful, that Neshannock offense is going to go up and down the field. We said earlier, the chunk plays, when they want them, they feel like they can get them anytime.
7 o'clock kickoff from Bob Bledgy Stadium. Again, Eric Thomas, Tim Continenza on the call for that one. The other game we'll have, I'll be on the call with Lee Moan. Had to pull that one out there for you, Lee. For Mohawk traveling to Shenango, and Coach McCutcheon talked about it. Yes, it's going to be obviously a very emotional night, a very heavy-hearted night for everybody involved. Obviously, the Shenango community, but just it is such a tight-knit community. Everybody in the county knows everybody. That's just how it always has been. How it always will be here in Lawrence County. You know that's going to be emotional on the field, in the stands, all of the above. It's going to be a different kind of battle. On paper, Mohawk 2A, Shenango 1A. Mohawk playing better football right now than what Shenango showed in their first game of the year. Tim, we know that is going to mean absolutely nothing when the ball is kicked on Friday night.
Yeah, it's Lawrence County versus Lawrence County, and all the emotions that's going to be involved in this game. It's going to be big for both teams. Obviously, Mohawk being 1-1, knowing that they've played 2 tough games in a row, games that, in game 1, they thought they had a shot at winning and didn't do it, and they turned over the balls. They made improvements. It's going to be really important. It is going to be all emotion on Shenango's side. Let's be honest. It's a matter of controlling your emotions and using that emotions to effectively improve your play and make big plays. And I think they're going to feed off the entire environment. And I think that's going to be really key for them. And it's going to be emotional. And it's going to be a difficult game. But I think it'll be a game that most people will remember for a long time.
It is definitely a rivalry that we've known for a long time. In fact, it is dating back all the way to 1930. It is the 75th meeting ever between Mohawk and Shenango. That's the second most in Lawrence County history. Only Shenango Union, which has played 89 times, is the only rivalry that has played each other more often. But get this is only the third time they've played since 2008, and I'd love that to be the main headline of getting this rivalry back on track. But when it comes to the X's and O's for Shenango, it's going to be about execution because they lost game 1, but their defense did not allow a single point, Eric.
Yeah, that's true. And, this is a weird game because at some point it has to become about trying to win a football game for both sides. And it's not to toss that emotion aside or toss what happened aside, but Mohawk's coming there to win a football game. Shenango's going to want to win a football game. They were right in it. This whole situation made me think back to 2000. I think it was 2004. And back then I was covering Southern Columbia, and they had 2 players who had died in the off season. And they used to start every game with 9 players on the field. They went to Warrior Run, who was just itching for a big win. And they used to, when they would do it, if they were on offense, they would take a knee on first down. And if it was defensively, they just risked having 9 players out in the field. Warrior Run threw the ball in the first play of the game and scored a touchdown. They just did not care. And that was sort of disrespectful. And I'm not saying you approach the game like that, but it's the idea that at some point it does have to become about trying to win a football game. And how do you balance that out if you're both coaches? And if you're Shenango, it's obvious. You just want to win and have a bright spot for your community. If it's Mohawk, you need to win. I mean, it's as simple as that. Shenango, we talked about early in the season, where were they going to find their victories at? One of them, if it happens on Friday night, is going to go a long way to propelling that team maybe for the rest of the season. And Tim, you had said a couple minutes ago about, well, it's not necessarily like a win, a must-win game. I think you have to start looking at some of the schedules for these teams. Now, from Mohawk's standpoint, their schedule gets easier as the season goes on. They get rebuilding teams. They get most of them at home. Shenango's going to have to find wins somewhere. And Laurel, their schedule, if you look at this the rest of the way,
it's brutal.
Is after Friday night, Bishop Canavan, Rochester, Northgate, Shenango, which will be emotional because it's a rival, Southside, and they close with Neshannock. If they don't win on Friday night, Summit Academy probably, you can pencil that in. We saw them last year against Union. Shenango, maybe because it's a rival, you throw everything out the window. I don't know where they're coming up with enough wins to qualify at this point. That's why these early season games, you hate to put so much stock in it, but there is. You got to win games here.
Legitimately, it's a short season. You're talking 9 games. You have to find a way to get to your total up. On that level, you're 100% correct. And I think that is a legitimate point to make. What most important, I think, in a game that has such high emotions is controlling your emotions and feeding off of them.
Right.
And I think both teams are going to be up against that because you have Mohawk needing big victories as they continue down the road. And then you look at Shenango. Shenango has to find a way. They
need something for the community.
Exactly.
That's what it's about.
No matter what happens in the final score, this is going to be all, like I said, emotions. And we've seen other schools deal with this, other communities be in situations similar to this. It's going to be just an emotional night, and these kids are going to be up against it, but they have to play within themselves. It's going to be tough on the coaching staff. They're going to have to coach within themselves. They're going to have to find a way. Someone's going to make a big play that you won't expect. That's usually what happens in a game like that.
Let me finish that whole thought off with another story. You reminded me of it. So I actually was chatting with my high school principal where I teach at Union, Rob Nogay, the girls basketball coach, state champion a couple years ago. He was actually a teacher at Neshannock when I was attending Neshannock, and he kind of brought up a point that I really hadn't thought of much. But during my senior year of high school, we lost a classmate midway through that year, and I remember just, obviously the emotions and the memories that start coming back through with that. They gathered the entire senior class in the auditorium and broke the news, and it was very devastating. And some people who were crying, some people were just completely beside themselves, people who had no idea what to feel. But then after a few minutes, at least my mindset and a couple of my classmates who were near me, our mindset was, okay, I can sit here, I can think about this, or I can get back to doing what I need to do. And that was just how my mindset and how I needed to work. And that's what got me back going to continue doing what I need to do. And I think that's what this Shenango community and the Shenango players and the Shenango coaches are all going to want to be thinking of. Like, yeah, people are going to be saying, why are we playing? Why are you out there? Why is this going on? This is why. You need to help heal. That's it. That's the word right there. Get back to a sense of normalcy and doing what you do on a regular basis. Being out on that practice field from 4 to 7 every Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever your schedule is. That's the biggest key. And those memories are always going to pop up. They're going to pop up when you least expect it. I know it's going to hit a random player, random coach midway through, the second quarter. Just something's going to happen, and you have to push it aside, and that's life. That's moving forward, and that's what I hope this team and this community can do. And a strong performance on Friday night would certainly help that, even if it's not. Even if it's 100-0 defeat at the hands of Mohawk, which it's not going to happen. This is going to be a good ball game. It's still the healing process of getting back out there. I mean, think of Marshall. We are Marshall. They have a couple of rough games, but they just want to be there and be back there as a community. That's goal number one, and we're glad to be a part of that coming up here on Friday, Tim.
It's going to be emotional. That's the only word I have for it. But it's going to be important for everybody involved. And when we get right down to it, when kickoff happens, it is two schools facing each other on competition on a Friday night, trying to win a football game. And in the end, that is going to really, I think, become the focus and really become where those players and those coaching staff will have that 2.5 hours to really not think about anything else but what the next play is and how they're going to make it happen, both offensively, defensively, whatever the scenario may be, special teams, what type of strategy you need for this play or that play, or what situation we are in. It's going to be a challenge for both schools. It's going to be a big challenge for for Shenango, but they can definitely, I think they're looking forward to Friday night for some normalcy, to get back into the competition of what they do. And it is going to be a big game on that level. I mean, there's no way around it. You only have 9 games. You got to find a way to win.
Yep. And your one final tune-up again before all these teams get ready into conference play. The only exception to that, Newcastle still has 2 more before their 6-team conference in the Parkway. They won't get started until Week 5, Game 6 there for the Canes. Well, gentlemen, that will about wrap it up here as another fun week in the books. We're going to have volleyball tomorrow, actually, Tim. You get to check out a day early on the Elwood City versus Neshannock front. How about that?
We'll get the rivalry started in the county, and we'll have a lot of emotion there. Just getting the ball up in the air and and see how both teams react. So I'm looking forward to seeing that along with Jay tomorrow. So it should be a great broadcast, a great match between those two schools on the volleyball court.
And Eric, real quick, just how incredible it is that we're already seeing some of the upsets even. Like Neshannock volleyball was ranked in the top 3, top 4, depending on which rankings you were looking at. They lose to Laurel. Elwood City comes in with a straight sets victory. All of a sudden, the tides feel like they're turned there.
It's high school sports. Anything on any given day. I mean, that's as simple as that. It's no better. I mean, this county, the rivalries, the back and forth, everybody wanted to knock off each other. It makes it so much more enjoyable for everybody involved, including us.
Appreciate our producer, Mr. Matthew Flannery. Big props to him, as always, getting us up and running here. And thanks, everybody, either watching, listening on YouTube, or on Spotify as well. For Tim, for Matt, for Eric, I'm James Dotson saying so long. Stay tuned. Elwood City against Neshannock, Thursday and Friday, volleyball and football. Also Mohawk at Shenango, and plenty more coming your way on the Lawrence County SportsNet. Today's broadcast brought to you by Penn Ohio Bottled Water and Lawrence County SportsNet, as always, powered by LCAP. Your voice for Lawrence County sports.
The gold ball headed home to Newcastle.
This is